You're listening to the Limitless Broadcasting Network.
This is Robby Reviews.
I feel the need for speed.
I'll make him an offer again.
Life was like a box of chocolates.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss
First
it.
rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
I'll be back.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Show me the
Roads. Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Robby's Reviews. Today I'm joined with a special guest, Sammi. Once again.
Roped into this.
I know, I rope her into things. And today we are discussing Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it last night. Very cool. But let me give you a synopsis of it. During World War II, Lieutenant General Leslie Groves Jr. appoints physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer to work on the top secret Manhattan Project. Oppenheimer and a team of scientists spend years developing and designing the atomic bomb. Their work comes to fruition on July 16th, 1945, as they witness the world's first nuclear explosion, forever changing the course of history.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is R-rated, nudity, language, and some sexuality, genre, history, drama, and biography. Director, Christopher Nolan.
Of course.
Producer, Emma Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Nolan. Written by Christopher Nolan.
You know that?
I did not know it was written. Yeah. Release date is July 21st, 2023, worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Box office gross is $285.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Running time, and it's 3 hours. We'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Distributor is Universal Pictures. Production company is Atlas Entertainment.
And Syncope? I've never heard of Syncope.
They're an independent.
Oh, okay.
Rotten Tomatoes, 93% for, is that critics?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Critics are 93% and audience is 91%.
That's high. Oh.
Very high. Yeah, very much so.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just saw this last night. It's fresh in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
We went to a later showing. So, we went to the 9:30 showing at Disney Springs.
Which really means the movie started at like 10.
And we didn't get out till about 1 o'clock.
Yes.
So, when you first started sitting down, what did you think of the movie?
I mean, I really, we saw previews, and I remember when they were running the previews earlier in the summer for Oppenheimer.
Okay.
You know, they had the main actor, Cillian.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, I knew it was going to be, about the bomb, right? The atomic bomb. But I didn't really know much about, what the movie was going to entail.
Right.
So, you know, when it first started, it kind of goes back and forth between, I guess it's
present
the black
day.
and white is supposed to be this is happening now, I guess.
No, the black and white happened in the past.
No, the black and white, because they had the hearing. That was the last thing. Because the hearing with
Strauss, the black and white was current.
Yeah.
Okay.
Times or most recent times. And so, you know, I was a little confused at first about what exactly was going on, because they were kind of going back and forth. So we went back in time, and of course the makeup and the colors helped too, because the actors look younger and then they look visibly older with the makeup. So
Right.
it's helping you to kind of place where we are in time with that too.
Right.
But yeah, I wasn't too sure about what we were getting into, and I didn't know we were going to start the movie with Oppenheimer as like a student
Right.
and kind of
As
go
a student and then
not
professor.
long. Like, yeah, he was only a student. Like, it was a very short amount of time. They showed him as a student.
Right.
And then
They were like, how do you need to study under so and so, and this is with the whole apple. Like, he supposedly was going to poison his teacher.
Yeah, the professor.
But nobody knows if that's accurate or correct. So take that part of it with a grain of salt. But yeah, we did start out as him as a student, but he must have taken everybody's advice and said, oh, I'm going to go to Germany and study under this guy and that guy. So he became a scientist, theoretical scientist.
Yeah, and they jump into this hearing that's going on with him where he's basically being interrogated. So you kind of get bits of the story in multiple ways, whether he's talking about it or Strauss is talking about it, or you're just watching it happen on screen. So there's a lot of
So in this
piecing it
part,
together.
we're talking like the McCarthy area, like communists in Hollywood and things like that.
A big thing. Yeah.
And that's a big thing during this time, and it was a big thing in the United States at one time. If you look back, I mean, we're not too far away from that time period. McCarthyism,
yeah.
I mean, that was really right around the corner. If you think about it, all this took place not that long ago in history.
Yeah.
So when they bring it to the screen, you're like, it kind of blows your mind.
And it's very interesting because Oppenheimer went to a lot of the meetings, but I guess he never officially joined the Communist Party, but his brother did.
Right.
But he was clearly friends with, dating people in that crowd with the communists. And then he would work with student rallies on campus that wanted to like unionize on, for pay and lab work. And that was the whole big thing you shouldn't be doing in that time frame. And
now look at today and the whole Hollywood strike and everything, what they would say at this point in time.
I thought that was really interesting. That was like a big no, like you shouldn't be joining this or pushing this on campus. We shouldn't be encouraging, because Josh Hartnett's character, that scientist,
right?
I can't remember his name right now, but he's basically telling him like, what are you doing? You can't be involved in projects if you're out here trying to encourage them to do the unions,
right? Now,
and it's so interesting now because they use unions to really try and fight for workers' rights. And
right.
Yeah, it's
look how times
super
have changed.
Interesting. Yeah, now it's a lot more accepted and people push it more.
Right.
Back then it was like taboo.
What did you think of the actual story of this?
It was super interesting. I basically knew nothing.
Yeah, going into this, I didn't know anything.
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about Oppenheimer. I'm going to be honest with you, like literally nothing. So learned a lot about him.
Right.
And
yes,
this is something we actually, when were we talking about this? With Hamilton. We just did an episode on Hamilton with Pixie Dust Twins.
Okay.
I promise it makes sense. So we were talking about Hamilton, and one of the things in the musical, we were talking about how they're showing these founding fathers. In particular, it's about Hamilton, but there's other founding fathers in there.
Right.
But they're people. So people do sometimes scummy things. They're
right.
not black and white. They're not these like gods,
right.
do no
They're
wrong.
They're human beings that make mistakes.
Yeah, we talked about in particular with like Hamilton, because Hamilton was like a womanizer and he cheated on his wife and did things that.
Well, so was Oppenheimer.
And I was just going to say, and Oppenheimer kind of was a scumbag to his wife. I mean, like, I didn't appreciate that, but it's true to his story and who he was as a person. And I mean, let's be honest, especially back in the day, it was just more like you could do whatever you wanted. And the women were just kind of like, it's fine, I guess. I'll just put up with your cheating ways.
Aren't you glad Christopher Nolan put this in the picture so it painted the full picture?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's a real person with real flaws and did some crappy things. He lied about what was going on in some cases with because they were talking about how like he made up that whole story when he was talking to one of the generals.
Yeah.
I mean, like he makes up stories. Like he
did that to protect his friends.
And I know he was
trying to protect different people.
Right. But he still lied to a like U.S. official. I mean, but the only thing I don't, and I generally just don't care for this in movies and shows, is they were showing him with, what's her name? Jean, right? That was Florence Pugh's character. Jean. Some of the scenes with her, I was like, I don't know that we had to film it that way. Like the nudity, the sex scenes. I understand they were dating and having an affair, and he went back to her and slept with her when he was clearly married with kids at one point when he was older. I understand that, but sometimes the way it's filmed, it's like I don't need the like whole graphic nudity thing to get the point across. Do you know what I mean?
You don't
like
want to
see
her boobs hanging out.
Yeah, and I know Florence Pugh is certainly comfortable with it, and I have no problem with that aspect. You know, it's not like I think she was probably forced to do it in the scene or didn't feel
she
comfortable
probably
with
got
it.
paid a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, but my whole point is like, was it necessary for the movie? I feel like you can do things in a more subtle way and still get the point across. And we, like, again, I'm so sorry, because I know you were not like into Hamilton, but we were talking about some of the songs in Hamilton. There was like one where Hamilton's blatantly cheating on his wife and they talk about it. But the way they do the song, you know, it's a musical. They're not going to be stripping off their clothes in the middle of the musical, right? But there was so much intimacy there. You could feel it. You know, it came across. You got the tension there, the sexual tension, without having to have somebody just be nude in a scene to be nude in a scene.
This is where commerce and entertainment come, because this is a visual medium.
And I don't disagree, but I think sometimes you can do the visual medium without it being so in your face. And again, I'm sure Florence Pugh is fine with it. She's beautiful. It's not that. It's just, I'm like, what is this really adding to the movie? Like, did you have to film it this way?
I think the reason why they're doing that is to kind of drive it home. Obviously not to you, but to other people in the audience need that visual.
And that may be,
you know, imagery to say this is actually what's going on. And let's be honest, people, especially when it comes to cinema, don't get a lot of things, so they have to kind of be blunt about it. That's why they have to shoot things in a certain way.
There was this scene when they're doing the interrogation and they're talking about his relationship with Jean, and you have Emily Blunt as his current wife.
You could tell
Kitty
she was
sitting there.
Pissed.
Yeah, that scene, it was super awkward because they had Florence come back in and it was basically like they were doing it in the chair, and not really, but you know, like that's her. She's imagining
yes.
That part I was like, this makes me uncomfortable, but I understood that because that's how she was feeling in that moment. She was so upset about having to relive it, and like she said to him, like, now it's on the official record about what you did to her with her and what you did to me, and that just bothered her. And I could understand that perspective. I was like, you should feel awkward and uncomfortable in this moment because that's how she's feeling.
Can you imagine filming that scene? Like,
I mean, I'm sure not everybody
Nolan's
was in there. I'm sure it was just Florence. Yeah, like, I'm sure it was minimal.
Florence, the dude, the Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And,
I don't even know if Emily Blunt had to be there for that. They could have just filmed her part separate, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know? And again, Florence Pugh, I'm sure was...
But the people in the...
wouldn't do anything that she was uncomfortable with.
You could see the guys in the background, though.
Mm-hmm.
So
But they could have added... Well, no, Christopher Nolan doesn't do.
No, they had to do that.
He doesn't do special.
They had to be there for that. So he doesn't
like to put things together in post like that, as he said. Everything is practical.
The special effects and everything, he's not down
Chris,
with it.
Calm down. Like,
so, what did you think of the length of the movie?
It was very long.
Did it feel very long?
I mean,
keep in mind, let's take the part out that you were tired. If you weren't tired...
I was feeling tired at the end. I did say to you right after the movie that because I was starting to get tired because it was so late, I was just, there were parts where I was like, are we done with his interrogation? We already know that they're not going to give him clearance again, that he's going to basically be like viewed as an enemy of the United States. Can we just wrap it up? Because I'd like to go home. I'm getting sleepy. But besides that, no, it had so much to cover. I guess that's why.
That's why it was so long, is because you're covering a period of time and you have to fit everything in the story
to
make
explain it all.
Yeah, to explain it, to make it make sense. I personally didn't think the time was bad. Like, from start to finish, I was captivated. I was so intrigued about the blast, about when this thing was going to go off and how they were going to do it and how they were going to actually make that effect, like, hit you emotionally. And they did a great job.
It was, what I really liked about the film too was it showed both sides of the coin. Like,
yes.
they're like, this is important for the war. And, you know, Oppenheimer was pointing out, like, some of his motivation was because he's Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what Hitler was doing to all of the Jewish citizens in his country. It was, like, really messed up. So he had some motivation there, but then the war was kind of over.
See, that's the thing. I don't think people understood that they were
Yeah.
actually trying to build this thing for Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And
of
it
what's
took
going on
2 years
with
or
the
whatever.
Jews and
Yeah.
everything like that and the concentration camps. And then it just took so long to build
Mm-hmm.
and the war was over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they used it on
Hiroshima.
Hiroshima
In Japan.
and Nagasaki. Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
But
Try saying that.
but that was very interesting too, as they started all having these moments of,
What are we doing?
we're gonna kill a lot of innocent people with this, and this doesn't seem like the best thing. And it was just interesting to have, you know, like Oppenheimer is basically like, I was hired to do a job and I was there to do the research and follow the science to create this thing, and what they do with it, I don't have a say in that. That's not my decision. It's up to people who are, you know, in the military, you know.
After
essentially.
they built it and after they turned it over, when Oppenheimer was talking to the general, he was like, can you keep me informed?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes, as much as I can. I feel like he was trying to keep his hand on the pulse as much as he could, contain it. But he knew he gave them a new toy. He gave the United States and everything a new toy
you could tell
that
he had
he
a lot
had
of,
no control over.
yeah, there was a lot of mixed emotions for him about the entire thing. And I think really, truly at the beginning, it did seem like it was like, oh, this is a science thing, and could we create it, and are we able to? And then as it got closer and closer to being ready to go, that's when you start to say, like, wait a second.
We're
like,
really doing this. This is actually
a real
happening.
thing that's going to kill people, and it's very hard to swallow. And the most interesting scene, I swear, was the one where he meets Truman. And this
Okay.
was, and I couldn't believe when we read this was like a true interaction that happened with them, where Oppenheimer gets to meet Truman, and it's supposed to be this big accolade, right? Because, you know, you helped create the atomic bomb and
What have you.
and Oppenheimer's just like, you know, like, I'm struggling with this. I feel like I have blood on my hands. And Truman, like, sarcastically gives him a handkerchief. And then when he leaves, he's just like, don't ever bring that crybaby back in here again.
And that's a
based
real
on
thing.
true facts. And that just
Blew your mind.
horrific. I mean,
Truman was basically like, with me dropping this thing wasn't
It's on me.
It wasn't about you. It's on me.
But
I did that.
But everyone who helped create that atomic bomb does have blood on their hands. When you think about it, because it's not like they made it and didn't know what it was going to be used for. They can't feign ignorance. It was very explicitly told to them, we're going to be bombing, whether it's Hitler or now it's going to be Japan. But they knew that by the explosion size, what they were creating, they knew that innocent people were going to be killed, because even Oppenheimer's trying to say, like, you shouldn't drop it on this city because it's too densely populated. And,
In
you know,
every meeting that Oppenheimer went to, he did point out both sides.
He did,
He was
yes.
like, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And I respect that, because he was trying to give everybody a full picture on what was going to go on. And I respect that. But he knew at the end of the day, he was paid for a job, and that's what he could do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it is what it is with it, but I think I would feel like I had blood on my hands if I created that
Well,
and actively developed it.
you're producing a bomb. I
Yeah.
think anybody in their right mind would say, you know, I'm producing a bomb that is going to kill millions of people. What do you think?
Yes.
How do you think these big defense people, contract people, do today? We're building this weapon that is going to kill millions of people.
It was, they said the final estimates may have been like 220,000 people.
But there's
Right?
only, it started out at 70,000. And then
Well, it grew because
it grew.
people died because of the
Radiation and
from
the
it.
aftermath.
But I mean, it was insane when we watched the test too, because
Right.
like, you know, it's going to work. Like, you know, it's going to work because they did it, right? We're
Right.
well past that point. But, you know, is when you're sitting there, you have that moment where like, you're like, is it going to go off? You know,
And
they're
I
not
think that's
entirely
the way
sure.
they planned it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it how when they're like, they're talking about how far away they have to be back for the explosion. And then one of the guys is like, is this a safe distance? And Oppenheimer looks at him and says,
Yes.
they're off your
It's your
calculation.
calculation, so you tell us.
You got to stand behind this, literally. And I think that was kind of like an oh shit moment for him. Like, oh, this is going to really happen. And if I'm wrong, we all could be fucked.
And it was so interesting too because they handed out like goggles or like shields so you could look at it. Like you would do if there's an eclipse, right? You don't want to stare directly at the sun or the explosion. But they're handing these out, and I know there was one where like two of the guys were in their car, and he's like, "Oh, the windshield will protect me," and I'm just like, "You're an idiot! Like that's not how windshields work. Like you can clearly see through it. It's not going to protect the light." And then when you see them like squinting in there, I was just like, "Duh!"
And
But
for scientists, you should have known better.
I don't think he was a scientist, though. I think he may have been. Was he a scientist?
He was a scientist.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, you're an idiot. And then it was fascinating to me to see they're in these like brick, like wooden structures that they built. And I'm like, I personally would probably feel uncomfortable being inside a wooden structure knowing the blast that's about to come towards me from this bomb. It stood, but then you had the other people who were out in the desert who literally, when it went off, laid on the ground, and they were told when you see the light on the mountain, then you can turn around with your like goggles or like your the glass they gave you so you could look at it. And I'm just like, no, I do not want to be just sitting out in the open with this coming at me, not knowing what I'm going to be exposed to,
right,
or how big the blast will be when it gets to me. But
when the initial blast went off, it went boom, and then they waited a while because the atomic part had to drop, and that's the part that shocked everybody. And that when you're watching it, it took your breath away. Like you literally felt like you were in there at that moment in time.
The whole thing was the bomb, so it all went down, and it all went off at once. But you were so far away that it took that long for the air to reach,
catch
for
up
the
with
actual
you.
blast to reach you, so you could see the explosion, and it's almost over before you get the impact of it. Is what happened.
Like, and Oppenheimer itself, he said this is a world killer. And let me ask you this question: how many times have a nuclear bomb went off in history? Twice?
I mean, I think we were the only ones official. Well, I don't know. What did Korea do? I don't know what Korea's been doing out there.
But
they've been testing it, I think.
I think because in the story, Oppenheimer was like, nobody is going to want to use this. And I think we were the only country to actually ever pull that trigger.
And then the problem was afterwards when they were talking about doing a hydrogen bomb, he did not want to pursue it. He said, because you're going to encourage everyone else to do it.
Right.
If we do it, they're all going to say, I have to have one because the United States has one. And that's going to lead to nuclear war. And that's what he was afraid of, was everyone would be like, well, he has one and he has one, so I'm going to get one. And now I'm just going to go drop it on him because I know he has one. I don't want to drop it on me first. That's what he was really concerned about, which is a very, very valid
point.
Concern.
And absolutely. If the United States has something, Russia's going to have one. China's going to have one. All the superpowers in the world are going to have one that feels safe. And I feel like, you know how Oppenheimer was like, we're going to release a chain reaction with this weapon. I think they actually did that.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has an atomic bomb.
Well, he really says that at the very end when we finally, after the whole movie, get to see what he and Einstein talked about. Which, first of all, hello, Albert Einstein is in this movie. I was like, I guess, yes, they would be at the same time. But I don't know. It just seems like when you think about Albert Einstein, it just seems so long ago that he was around. And it really was not that long ago.
Right. That's what I keep saying. This is not that long ago in history.
Yes. But when he finally talks to him, when we find out why Albert Einstein kind of was sullen when he walked away, because Oppenheimer's like, remember when I was concerned that we were going to destroy the whole world? I think we did, and it's a very real thing. And obviously Einstein knew the impact of that too, but just to see Oppenheimer struggling with that, which he was not portraying to the public, and they talk about that in the movie, that wasn't the vibe he wanted to give out. He was on the
have the confidence and everything like that.
Yeah,
you have to
but
portray
he wasn't feeling that way.
Right.
Yeah, he certainly did not feel that way, it seems, in his personal life and when he talked to other people about it. And that's why they were getting so upset with him, the government, whatever, because he was starting to be like, we shouldn't be doing this. I know I helped create this, but
And I think that's why they were trying to make an example of him, because he just wouldn't shut up. And then the government doesn't like that.
No. And can we talk about
how many stars have in this picture?
There are so many people that we had no idea.
People.
Yeah, I just pulled up the cast. So, Cillian was, first of all, insane. Like, he's always brilliant whatever he's in. No idea Florence Pugh was going to pop up and be that big of an important character in this movie. Robert Downey Jr.
You knew he was going to be in there.
But to see, again, the makeup, the costuming, the sets,
right.
It's Christopher Nolan, so of course he's not going to spare any expense.
Right.
Such a good job. And at the very least, I would expect this movie to get nominations for those particular things, because
after the strike and everything, this will get nominated.
Sometimes, when you like watch movies and they age people up, you're like, they kind of look like too old or whatever.
Right.
I think they did such a great job with each time period with these characters and giving them just the right amount to make them look a little older still, even to the final point when he gets the medal at the White House.
Right.
And he didn't look like crazy old, like inappropriately old to me or
right.
bizarre. It was so well done.
Right.
With that, I just want to say, and Robert Downey Jr., his character Strauss, it was the same way, like just these little things they did to age him up to the black and white scene. It just so well done. Emily Blunt, I was like, oh, she's in this? Okay. I'm going to come back to one character. Jack Quaid, who was in Scream.
I didn't think he was famous enough to be in this.
Scream 5, well, the reboot, but
he's
Scream 5.
He's in The Boys on Amazon. He was in Scream 5.
No idea he was about to pop up. Matt Damon. I was just like, okay, he's a major character in this. Josh Peck, that's who we were talking about from Nickelodeon.
Right. I can't believe he was in this.
Yeah, no idea. And of course, Josh Hartnett, when he...
Josh Hartnett blew me away.
We were like, lean over, is that Josh? That's Josh Hartnett. Did you know he was in this? I didn't know he was in this.
He looks so different in his older age.
And the way they styled him, of course, because he's supposed to be a scientist, not only just a professor, but a scientist. So that was super important. And then the biggest one that I really want to talk about is Rami Malek.
Okay.
Because first one, he popped up on screen. We're like, I didn't know he was in this.
Right.
He doesn't say a damn word.
Right. You see
the
him.
The first 3 scenes he's in the background. He's literally getting crap
thrown at him.
Shoved at him.
People are stealing pencils from him.
They're ignoring him. They're bossing him around. They're being super rude. And then what does he do? He pops up at the very... And I knew it. Like when they were saying that they were bringing in Hill. And I was like, I know who this is. And David Hill is his name in the movie. I had no idea what his name was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, Hill's going to be a shoo-in to make sure Strauss gets appointed to the cabinet. It's not a problem, whatever. And I'm like, I don't even remember which one Hill is. And then when he walked up, I was like, oh. And you and I literally were like, oh, does he get to talk now?
Exactly. We're going to hire him to do something.
But in my head, I was like, he's going to be the problem for Strauss. And he is. He finally is just like, so the way you treat Oppenheimer was basically some garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And you should not be on the cabinet.
Right.
Like you shouldn't. This man, Strauss, he sucks. He is a bad person.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Oh, there's a bug. Okay.
Anyway.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, he actually made him actually get his clearance back. If it wasn't for him, I don't think Oppenheimer would have
No. He didn't even get the clearance. Remember, it was like posthumously given to him. So he got the Medal of Honor.
Right.
But they kind of didn't acknowledge that they really screwed up until he was dead. And they were like, oops.
So he got his clearance.
Read about that.
He got his clearance back after he died.
I believe that's what they were saying.
Because
when we were
I took it is if it wasn't for this guy, he wouldn't have gotten his clearance back.
Let's see. Let me see. J. Robert Oppenheimer cleared of black mark after 68 years.
Okay. So even though
it's on the New York Times, I was pretty sure they were saying he was dead before they were like, "Oh, our bad."
So even though this guy testified on his behalf, He still, it took him 60 more years to actually give him back his clearance. So,
Yeah.
do you think they compensated his family for that?
I have no idea if they did or not, but that's what they should have done.
That's something I would
So
like
yeah,
to find
he
out.
was, yeah, because he lost it in 1954.
Just because of a vendetta.
So he would have been 122 when they finally were like, oops. So they gave him that Medal of Honor or whatever at the White House, but still hadn't cleared what they did to him.
Right.
Which is typical.
We're kind of just scratching the surface on this movie.
You can't really cover
literally
all of it.
3 hours long. What did you think of the way it was shot?
Well, it's a Christopher Nolan film, so of course what's interesting is if you were to see a movie with Robby, these are things that happen while we're watching these movies. Do you see the lighting in that? Look how that's lit. Do you see that?
Well,
look how good the angle this is. Look how this is
critique
shot.
different angles and different.
So then I see stuff now, but yeah,
the way the scenes are lit.
He literally leaned over and he's like, "Look at the."
Like they were having a sex scene between the Few girl and Oppenheimer, Florence Pugh, and I was like, "Look at the way this scene is lit." And I'm thinking to myself, "This is what I'm noticing in this scene." But
you're a nerd.
It was driving an emotional response, and that's the way they were lighting it.
No, the lighting and really and truly the angle. So when he's being interrogated, the way they did the different angles was always super interesting to me to show the tables. And then they would do angles where like you could see like his face and then the back of whoever was talking.
Right.
That was always interesting to me to see like this is basically from like his perspective.
Right.
Yeah. It's
very interesting.
Well thought
movie.
out.
Christopher Nolan is really a good director, producer.
Clearly.
He literally thinks about every step in the way of his movies.
He is definitely
He'll get an Oscar for this movie.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. Like he's like a bit
he's a magician.
Not magician. No, I want to use a word that's kind of rude, but not to be super rude to Christopher Nolan. Like he's obviously a genius, but I feel like Christopher Nolan knows he's a genius when he does stuff. You know, like my film is better than your film
because he's Christopher Nolan.
Because I'm Christopher Nolan. I feel like there's that vibe with Christopher Nolan, you know. And I'm not saying he didn't earn it because of the movies he's created, but I feel like that's the way Christopher Nolan comes across, like a little bit, you know, like, well, my movie is going to be amazing because it's me.
Christopher Nolan. He's kind of a snob then.
Yes, I film my movies in a fancy IMAX that only like 5 people can go and see at the fancy IMAX because nobody has this IMAX theater in their states. You can go see it however you want, but I recommend that you go to this fancy schmancy IMAX theater
full use out of the
that
picture.
Nobody has anywhere near them in America. But okay, Christopher Nolan, we did not see it in the fancy IMAX because we don't have one in our area.
So, would you see this movie again if you had to?
If I was like gun to my head.
If you were gonna go see a new movie.
No, I mean I would see it again.
Would you see it again?
I feel like there's probably things you could pick up on from the story just from having watched the whole story, and then you go back to the beginning again, things to look out for. But yeah, there's definitely, I'm sure, little things that you miss just trying to keep everything straight with what's going on with him.
Right.
And like the whole time, okay, he kept talking to this blonde woman, right? Who is married to another scientist, and he seemed very friendly with her. All the way at the end of the movie, they're like, oh, her husband died, and they're saying he died of a broken heart because he knew you were having an affair with her. And he's like, oh, that's incorrect. He didn't know. And I was like, what? Because
you didn't know it. You didn't
they were very friendly. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't have. I just assumed they were friendly. I did not.
Pugh, and then
Florence Pugh. She was blatant because they had Florence Pugh, her boobs all over the screen. So I knew that. And obviously then he had an affair with
this other chick.
Her name was Kitty. Was that her character name? Oh, it's gonna bother me that I can't remember. There were so many people in this movie. Kitty. Yeah, because he married her.
Yes.
But he knocked her up before they got married. Yes. And then he goes to Florence Pugh and he's just like, yeah, I can't see anymore because, you know, now I'm going to have a baby with this other lady.
While he's with Kitty, he has another affair. So
I did not pick up that the blonde woman he was talking to,
You didn't know he
banging in the
was smashing
background.
her? Of course he was.
No, I thought they were friends, and I am naive because clearly Oppenheimer just was doing the most, like my buddy Hamilton that I just watched for the Pixie Dust Twins.
I mean, we put celebrities on a pedestal and we think, oh, they can't do any wrong.
No.
But they're humans. They're human beings. I mean, you get to actually see the inside and out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's why I think this show works so well. Yeah. I also like the fact that we got to see what happens after the blast, after the bomb drops. You know, what happens to this guy? Why don't we get to talk about him in history? Why don't we talk about Oppenheimer and Einstein all in the same
And I
school?
guess it's because they disparaged his name so much.
Right.
They're like, oh, he's a traitor to the country. And now we know that's not the case.
I mean, we learned about Einstein and Thomas Edison in school, but who talks about Oppenheimer?
And that's what's so interesting. And again, I'm so sorry to keep bringing up like Hamilton, but we just did this for the Pixie Dust Twins. It's in my mind. But these are the conversations we were having about historical figures, right? When you're in school, like, it's just kind of, I'm sure there's teachers out there who don't make it boring, but reading about someone in a textbook is boring, and the people who put together the textbook ultimately form your opinion of these people.
Right.
But there's so much goodness to having these artistic things available, whether it's a movie or a musical that teaches you about the true history, the good, the bad, the ugly,
that they don't want you to know
really
in school.
were. And it makes them more of a human and can make you appreciate what they did or didn't do. Yes, Oppenheimer kind of sucks in his personal life. I don't enjoy what he did to anybody he was intimate with in any shape or form.
But he was a genius.
And making the atomic bomb, that's kind of a shitty thing to have done, but it is what it is.
And somebody had to do it.
But we know why he did it. I'm not saying, like, there's a gray area there. It's not black and white.
His motivation was for the Nazis and to do that.
And the science.
And the science behind it.
Yes.
Because you can only go so far with theoretical stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It's not not a black and white issue, and I would never just be like, oh, he's a shitty person because he made the atomic bomb. There's a lot more to it than that.
If they didn't get Oppenheimer, they would have gotten somebody else. And when the United States wants something to happen, they get it done. One thing I thought was funny is they fired some guy on the project, and Matt Damon's character is the general at this, and they're like,
yes.
how are you going to keep him from talking? And Matt Damon's like, oh, we're going to have him killed. And he's like, oh, I'm joking. But a part of me is like, no.
That could have been.
He's done.
It's hard to say.
He wanted to get off this project. They're going to clip him. So I don't think that was a joke.
It's hard to say with the government what they do or do not do. But, yeah.
How would you rate this movie? 10 being the overall best movie you've ever seen. What would you give it?
I mean, probably a 9 out of 10.
I would give it about a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I wanted to see it because of the hype and what everybody was saying about it, but I wanted to form my own opinion. I did not see any criticism or anything like that. I wanted to go in there with an open mind.
It's got amazing reviews,
and
obviously.
see what was going on. And from the moment we sat down to the moment we ended, honestly, I could have rewatched it that same night. I would have been tired, but that's how much I liked it. After, when the credits came on, I was like, that was exhilarating.
And it's something we haven't talked about too much on your show, but maybe consider. Like, we kind of brought up at the beginning, the trailer for this.
Yeah.
So, sometimes when we're looking at movies, most of the time when we're looking at movies, like, we look at the trailers, right? Like you said, we don't read reviews, right? Because we don't care what anyone else thinks, because we'll like it or we won't like it.
Right.
That's it. But like this one, the trailer, like Christopher Nolan knows how to put together a good trailer to make you interested. Like, you don't totally understand what the movie is about necessarily or know the entire plot, but it's enough that makes you say, like, that seems like it probably would be an interesting story. Like, I'm intrigued to find out maybe more about what's going on. And some trailers are just garbage out there. And this is not one that had a terrible trailer.
You can sell a whole movie off of a trailer.
Yeah, really.
Even though some of the best parts of the movie is the trailer, that's how movies make money sometimes. They make pre-sales from the
From
trailers.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll start talking about later, the trailer, pre-sales, all that. Later we get down the line in this show. But yeah. So our recommendation, definitely go see Oppenheimer. It's fun. It's historic. You learn a lot from it. Bring the whole family. Maybe not people under the age of 17.
I don't know if I would bring
some,
children to
there's
this.
some nudity in there.
Well, not just because of the nudity, but I don't think I would bring children because it's a heavy subject.
Right.
And I don't know that I would want a child trying to decipher the entire meaning of this atomic bomb. And there are some gnarly scenes in there where he's picturing what is going on to these people that just got bombed in Japan.
And people's skin is falling off.
And it's horrific, but it's
stepping on
the truth.
Carcasses and everything.
It's
so
the truth about what happened. So yeah, that for that reason I would maybe be like, not children, but like teenagers I feel like could get something out of it, learning a real historical thing about what happened.
It is pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. This this episode was sponsored by the Pixie Dust Twins. So go check them out. They're produced by Limitless Broadcasting in 1950 Studios. Wherever you get your podcasts, if you're a Disney fan, you're going to love that. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment for this one, Robby's Reviews. Yeah, and we'll let you know the next review we're going to do. But please follow us on Instagram.
Yeah.
Robby Reviews Movies.
Yes. Robby Reviews Movies. At Robby Reviews Movies. No
on
space.
Instagram. So, thank you for checking us out. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Robby Reviews is hosted by Robby Brooksby as part of the Limitless Broadcasting Network. Post-production and intro by Sammi Brooksby. Follow the show on Instagram at Robby Reviews Movies. Check out the other shows on our network by following at Limitless Broadcasting on Instagram and at 1950 Studios on TikTok. See you next time.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.